Hi, and welcome everyone. This is Jimmy, and this is a special AMA session with ATOR Protocol team. Today, we are so excited to delve into really fundamental questions and topics. It's actually a topic, it involves all of us, everyone with a device connect to the internet. This topic is extremely important. It's about our fundamental right, it's about our online privacy. Before I gonna continue, people who are listening, please hit the like button for ATOR Protocol and let me know in the comments where you're from, if your privacy tolerance allows this. So I would like to introduce the ATOR team, gentlemen. Perhaps you would like to introduce yourself like quickly and also your role within the ATOR Protocol.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jimmy. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Nuratik. I'm the COO of ATOR. Let me kind of introduce. With me, I have esteemed community member and speaker on behalf of sometimes DNB Wizard, and one of our new engineering hires and his first time here on an ATOR AMA, the wonderful Saunder.
Wow, beautiful. A dream team. I'm very happy, guys, to have you here. I once heard a joke, and I think this is a pretty well-known joke. It was about a husband whispering to his wife and said something in a really softly way, and then the wife asked the husband, "Why are you whispering?" And then the husband made a joke, and he said, "I'm afraid that Siri is eavesdropping us." So the husband started to laugh, the wife started to laugh, and then Siri also started to laugh. This is a funny joke, but there is some truth in it. Sometimes when I'm talking with my friends about eating a steak, going to the gym, eating some, I don't know, eating sushi, immediately and suddenly I'm getting to see all these ads about the topics I just searched on the internet, or just by talking with some people. I'm getting, I'm getting to see a lot of different, advertisements, and this is of course not really cool because it's telling me that we shouldn't take privacy for granted. I'm really curious, Neurotic, what was like? Let's start with the basics. Can you explain to the viewers what ATOR actually stands for, and maybe also give us a brief overview of what the ATOR protocol is all about?
Sure, can definitely do that. And I mean, I really love the way you introduced it, Jimmy, with a joke, which, it's a funny joke, but it really puts us in the context of what is increasingly happening all around us. And I think you can't introduce ATOR without introducing that context. And I think every single one of us, no matter what country we're in, have seen the increased erosion of our rights, the increased surveillance, spying on us, be it from consumer devices like Siri, be it home devices, be it the internet, be it the government. I think the trends towards freedom that as a globe we've sort of fought towards has increasingly been reversed. Our privacy has been increasingly eroded. And that is fundamentally why ATOR exists. ATOR exists to empower the decentralized parallel networks that actually give sovereignty and privacy back to the common user. So ATOR was set up, and our current focus is for the Tor network. We are the cryptocurrency project that are building incentives for people to run Tor relays. And with that, we hope to create an ecosystem. We hope to grow the Tor network, and we hope to make privacy a viable option for the mainstream internet user. In short terms, that's kind of the motivation. That's what we stand for.
Yeah, and I fully can relate to this beautiful mission of ATOR. Now the question is, a lot of people, we often think in limitations and boxes. So when I talk with someone about, like, let's say like the Tor network, I'm getting some misconceptions that's like, well, you have nothing to hide. And this is one of the questions I'm often getting from people. So why using the network? Why using Tor network? You have nothing to hide. So how would you address that?
I can dive in very quickly here. I hear that as well. Whenever people who aren't very privacy focused say that to me. I say, well, can you show me your DMs on Facebook? Can you show me your history, your Internet Explorer, Google Chrome history browser, or the history of your web browser? Then that sort of drives it home. And I think as well, it's a lack of education. People aren't aware of the visibility that governments and internet service providers actually have. And beyond that, organizations such as Google and Amazon actually have. So a very important part of the ATOR mission is also to educate people on that. But whenever I get asked that, what do you have to hide? I just say, can I have a look at your private messages? Can I read your text messages? Can I read your Twitter DMs? And then that helps to put things into perspective for the average internet user or citizen.
I couldn't agree more, and it's a extremely good example you just gave about let me see your DMs. I will remember that one. So what does the ATOR do in relationship to the Tor network? This is also often a question I'm getting from the community.
Great question. So what ATOR does around the Tor network is it allows people running these Tor relays. And for a little bit of background, the Tor network helps to anonymize a user's internet traffic. And it does that by hopping your website visit or your kind of internet activity through a series of 3 independently operated nodes. So there are these nodes in the middle. Each node encrypts traffic and then passes it on to the next one. And by definition, the Tor network only works if we have this community of operators running these nodes or servers, or as we call them, relays, to hop people's traffic around. And Tor network has existed for 20 years. It has done a very good job in being the go-to hub for whistleblowers, people wanting to avoid censorship, people in sort of more extreme countries. But while there are over 2 million and increasingly now 4 or 5 million daily active users on Tor, there are only 6,000 to 7,000 active relays actually hopping people's traffic between them. And we think part of the reason for that is these relays are run solely by volunteers. You know, as a decentralized network, as an open network, by definition, there's no centralized entity that's actually paying for these nodes to stay up. It simply relies on volunteers. And that's been fine so far for Tor's relatively minor usage compared to the rest of the internet. But that's something that needs to scale. So what ATOR does is very simple. If you run your Tor relay as you normally would, as you maybe always have been doing, and simply configure your relay to register with ATOR and register with our protocol, you will passively receive the ATOR token in accordance to the useful bandwidth that you propagate through the network. So in a sense, we're not adding a new software to the Tor network in terms of how Tor actually works. Tor will still work as normal. If you're using Tor, it still works as normal. But these relays who run Tor and contribute their bandwidth now are incentivized or recognized by the ATOR token in an automatic and passive way. And that's what we've built.
Yeah. So with the Tor, does it also mean that with the ATOR relay that it's that the user experience on the Tor gets a boost? I mean, is it beneficial for the user experience?
That's a great question. And the short answer is Tor stance is this, ATOR stance is this. The more people and more relays we have running up for the network, the better. And that's for a number of reasons. Maybe DNB can add to this. I'll give you a recent sort of exploration we did as a team, which is if you improve the geographic diversity of Tor nodes, if you have more nodes in different countries where they weren't there before, you can actually reduce latencies. You can improve the speed of activity on the Tor network. And Tor is notoriously slow for a lot of users. And so that speed boost is probably what stops a lot of users using Tor. That's something that we hope to contribute to by adding more nodes. It's also crucial for security, prevention against attacks, redundancy. There's huge benefits to having more Tor nodes.
Yeah, just to add to that, Jimmy, you know, a lot of times people take their privacy for granted because it has additional overheads, meaning that it's inconvenient For example, people don't set up two-factor authentication because it's inconvenient. People won't go on Tor because it's slower. So if via ATOR, we can increase the reliability and the efficiency and the speed of the backbone of the Tor network, it's not at the expense of end user experience. And if you can improve that end user experience and make it identical to browsing the clear web or using a centralized VPN service, it will further drive adoption. And what we really are aiming for is mass adoption. So the tech is just one aspect, but you have to look at the end user experience as well. And that's the whole part of the reason of getting these nodes up and running, is to increase people's privacy, but not at the expense of the average consumer experience. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, this brings me to the next question, DNB. A lot of people, they have this notion that just by having a VPN, everything should be fine. What's your stance? What's your view on that?
So a VPN, what a VPN will do is it will create an encrypted tunnel from your home computer or network through the internet, and then that encrypted tunnel terminates at a centralized server. So you're trusting that end VPN provider with all, that's where it decrypts. So all the information, sure, you can hide it from your local or regional internet service provider, but you're trusting that centralized third party, which is a VPN provider. So a lot of these VPN providers, and we have seen historic instances of this happening, they will just give that to the government or use that information or monetize that data in some way. Even if that VPN provider does not keep logs or says they do not, whoever they use as their internet provider will. So ultimately, your data is still getting captured somewhere. Also, I think that's really important to many privacy advocates is we don't want to trust policies and procedures that third parties use. We want to trust technology, mainly encryption standards. Tor uses open source and peer-reviewed encryption standards that have stood the test of time. That's military grade. It's used by banks, this and that. So yes, VPNs are an improvement, but it's not 100% bulletproof because you're trusting that VPN provider, and the majority of those are compromised.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And also, listeners, you should know now, a VPN isn't enough, and that's why we have ATOR Protocol. We've checked the roadmap, and we've also been following you guys, of course, for a long time. It seems like you guys have been working on the ATOR relay. Could you tell me something about it? Why the relay? It was actually previously already discussed a little bit, but maybe we can go a little bit more into depth, and how to obtain such a ATOR relay.
Sure, yes. So obviously the Tor relay software is open source and it exists. Thousands of people are running it currently. And I want to clarify that with the ATOR protocol, you can set up a Tor relay on your laptop. You can set it up on your server. You don't need to use our hardware to participate and earn incentive rewards. Indeed, we encourage people, as we are in testnet, to actually go and set up relays themselves on their devices and contribute to the network. That being said, we believe a crucial part of adoption and truly increasing the number of these relays in the network is making it straightforward for the non-technical user to contribute to the Tor network. And that's why since day one, hardware has been an integral part of our journey. So we're currently in the development of a low-powered single board computer, essentially, that can operate as a Tor relay. It's certainly more energy efficient than running it on your laptop. It comes with built-in firmware and a build image that allows the Tor software and its configuration to be easily set by a non-technical user. It has a user interface, works with Ethernet, Wi-Fi. It's essentially everything you need in one pretty sleek box that you can plug in, connect to power, configure with your ETH address, and you're now a Tor relay and you're earning passive rewards. So in some sense, for the non-technical perspective, it's sort of a low-powered crypto miner almost. But instead of using computation power and expensive GPUs, you're contributing your bandwidth, and it's for the non-technical user. We are, in terms of acquiring the relay is still in active development currently, and you can check our roadmap. Our goal is sort of by the end of Q4 2024, have our first sort of pre-sale of maybe 1,000 units, and into Q4 2023 this year, having our first pre-sale of units, and then early into next year, sort of distributing them at greater scale, and hopefully getting a relay into as many different hands as possible. And the second very crucial part of this relay hardware is the hardware is not only capable of using your Wi-Fi to run as a Tor relay, it's also capable of emitting a signal or acting as an access point. And this is actually one of the things we're going to be highlighting in our upcoming Tokenomics report, that we previously had the mission of having a separate ATOR router and ATOR relay. And I'm thrilled to announce that our current development roadmap will have both of these devices being in one. So the ATOR relay is physically capable of also being a router. And the router, when we release those firmware updates, maybe later on down the roadmap, will allow you to connect your devices. And so long as it's sort of the network and service using is compatible, you can run your network through Tor. So instead of having to use a Tor browser, you could actually use this device and use your own consumer devices and connect to Tor. So it's a dual, A, kind of an ATOR relay earning passive rewards, and B, this router Torifying your home network, all in one simple, sleek device. And while it's not out currently, you can check our Twitter, check our announcements channel for some previews of the physical box. And hopefully soon, we'll also have them in a few community members' hands to show off a little bit more.
I wish I can be one of these guys who can show off a ATOR device. I'm really into passive income, and I think like the previous bear market, or maybe the current bear market for that matter, was a pretty let's say a comfortable one because of different passive income strategies. So I just understood by having this ATOR relay and strengthening the Tor network, people they get a reward for that passive income. Is it already clear is there already a mechanism determined on how to distribute that passive income?
Yes, that's a great question. And that's sort of the main mechanism of this protocol, something we have dubbed proof-of-uptime. And essentially, it's that each of these Tor nodes, using an aggregation of metrics from all other Tor nodes reporting on them, and have a score called a consensus weight, which more or less scales with bandwidth. So in simple terms, the passive rewards you earn for running a Tor relay is proportional more or less to the bandwidth you provide to the network. So obviously keeping your relay up, keeping it consistently up so that more traffic flows through it, and sort of running the correct specs are all things that lead to a higher reward on a per miner basis. But ultimately it comes down to bandwidth.
Maybe I'm a little bit ahead, or but is it already like known how much a ATOR relay, what the cost, what the price is?
Both the price and the tokens being distributed and the exact number being split between them, these are all the central tenets of our upcoming Tokenomics report. And I do have some alpha and some special releases today, which are going to come through the AMA, but I'll leave that one for the report. But yeah, it's not exactly known currently.
Yeah, I bet the community is really curious to find that out, and eventually they will find it out through the official channels. So with the physical relay, so can someone have like multiple relays, or is it just one per internet connection?
That's a good question. You can, as a single node operator, operate multiple relays, but it's very, very important that if you do so, you declare it as a relay family. And that means that the same relays operated by a single user will not be used in a single given user's internet circuit. And so, in general, with the protocol, especially moving forward as we become more sophisticated with reward multipliers and so on, our intention is to encourage as many individual operators as possible running a Tor node. We believe that's what makes networks like Tor as strong as possible, when we have this diversity in node operators. And so there'll be mechanisms in place to prevent, audacious setting up of relays, setting up of relay farms, overuse of singular IP addresses or virtual machine hubs. In general, the intention is each user will run a single relay. And that's how we believe the network will be strongest. And that's the behavior we're going to be incentivizing.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. It should be clear now that the ATOR relay has a major role within the ATOR ecosystem. And we've seen that progress, of course, also on Twitter. And we have also seen on the roadmap about the ATOR protocol on the Ethereum mainnet in the roadmap. So can you maybe share some insights into this plan?
Yes. So yes, that's a very important point. Currently, our protocol is on ETH testnet, which means people can run a real Tor node and they can see their rewards, but the ATOR is actually test ATOR. Our aim is through the end of this year and maybe early into next year to get the protocol on ETH mainnet, and that's when you start earning real ATOR. But currently, we're in test mode. We're in beta.
Okay, so it's on the testnet, and when exactly it's the mainnet? As in which quarter?
Q4 of this year is the goal we've set out in the roadmap, and we're well on track to achieving all of our roadmap currently. The only thing that may change that is if we make a decision based on market timing and forces, and maybe the hardware as well. Those are the only factors that are stopping us giving an exact date. But Q4, depending on market factors, maybe early Q1 to next year, depending on what's best for the community environment, is sort of our thinking right now. It's very important to us to have an extended testnet period, because once this thing is live, the rewards and the protocol is meant to run indefinitely into the future. And it's very, very important, this period. And I want to thank our beta testers and relays currently set up for helping us do that. It's very important for us to, find all the chinks in our armor, really get an enterprise-grade, scalable protocol up. And so we'll take our time to make sure this is working and capable of achieving the vision we wanted to achieve.
Yeah, I'm sure this is a very highly anticipated event. The protocol on the Ethereum mainnet, well, now it's still on the testnet. So there's a lot of vision, and we can also see that there is a vision and there is a mission. And talking about the vision, and if we look into the future, what's the long-term vision for the ATOR protocol? Let's say 2-3 years from now.
Oh, if I can comment here, I'm just so bullish on this. There's just, well, a lot of this is just how I envision things, but so ultimately we need to get the Tor backbone speeds up to scratch. I personally am absolutely mind blown that we've already had 1,000 relays spun up in a few months. This is considering the Tor project. The network's been running for 20 years. And ATOR is now responsible for 10% of the backbone. This is just on the test net and before any hardware has gone live. So for me, that's just such a mind-blowing, just mind-blowing results. Also, I love networks and systems. What hasn't really been done before is torifying the whole network. I mean, you have devices in your house where you cannot currently tunnel through Tor, because you have to use a web browser. For example, with the growth of IP version 6 and the Internet of Things, everything's connected to the internet. So with the ability of the the mass amount of relay nodes out there, and the fact that these relay nodes will also act as hotspots, I envision that everyone's network, not just their end device or phone, will be connected and protected by the Tor network. So we will see a massive growth of Tor unique users and complete networks protected. Then to build upon that, and I'll maybe let Neurotic comment on this, I envision as on Tor, you have onion services, which are essentially web services that are only available on the Tor network. I envision that we will see a massive surge of Web3 and Web2 related services on these onion services. Imagine seeing Uniswap forks on onion services that you can interact with over the Tor network. Imagine GitHub forks distributed on the Tor network, so we can completely protect and anonymize developers, people doing transactions. Think of Wikipedia forks. Think of enterprises that then decide we're actually going to embrace the Tor network because we see these speeds. And of course, there'll be plans for governance and DAOs and things like that, which maybe I'll let Neurotic or Sander comment on.
Yeah, I'll pick it up from there. So I'm going to kind of give an overview of kind of why I've exactly joined ATOR. And the reason is that ATOR is kind of on the leading front of research in kind of this department. If you look at the software side and what we're doing, you have things that haven't been explored, and you're building an entire ecosystem of privacy, I guess you could say. And the range of possibilities are endless. And just starting from where we are at now, kind of privatizing and making this router system, just starting from there and expanding on, there's an infinite amount of things we can do. So I'm sure Neurotic can carry on with that.
Yes, absolutely. I agree on both fronts. And as I think DNB mentioned at the start, building out this protocol to incentivize and grow the number of relays on the Tor network is already affecting more users actually than daily active users of Ethereum. There are more Tor users on a daily basis than active Ethereum wallets, active Solana wallets, active Tether wallets. It's a huge undertaking and will hopefully have a pretty immediate effect once we're on mainnet. But what we're doing for the Tor network is still just a foundation for the journey we're going to want to take. I think in general, the ATOR protocol aims to be this ecosystem for the transition that we hope to make for the internet towards sovereignty, towards having services or websites or hosting that's actually built for privacy. So exactly as DNB says, once we have this backbone, in a place where the mainstream internet user can use Tor, be it through the router, be it using services on Tor, the possibilities truly become endless. And indeed, the protocol we're building, while built for the Tor network, is really both chain agnostic and usage agnostic. So what that means is the ATOR protocol itself, people can set up pools similar to the pool we have for relays operating on the Tor network for their own private services, for other networks. Everything scales, and we've built it in such a way that the use cases will flow naturally once we have this foundation. And as DNB and both Swander alluded to, my vision for, as you said, 1, 2, 3 years from now, not just for ATOR, but for the internet in general, is that every one of these commonly used services, be it Web 2, be it Web 3, could, should, and probably will have a mirror on the Tor network, because that's the direction and education we're hoping to push out. That's what I hope the mainstream internet user will come to expect once they realize how much their privacy has been eroded, and hopefully ATOR will be the ones to facilitate that transition.
Beautiful vision. I'm glad audience cannot see me, but I was listening with my mouth open. It's a vision that I think it benefits actually everyone, It benefits the Tor network, the people who are owning a relay, people on the internet, and it's going to make this online space, because everything is online now, a much more safer place. I'm seeing also some questions from the audience. You guys mind if we're gonna do a few of them?
Sure.
We have SE. He is asking what will be the roles of the software relay compared to the ATOR HW relay.
Sure. By HW, I assume he's referring to ATOR's own hardware, the ATOR relay. Even once we're on mainnet, the people running Tor relays on their own software, on their own laptops, is very much still relevant. Everyone is eligible to receive rewards, maybe slightly different depending on what you're running, but they'll still very much have the same role. Keep running, keep being a Tor relay, keep earning rewards.
And to comment on that, to further comment, I run traditional Tor nodes, and to link them to the ATOR protocol, you do not need to install any third-party modules or anything like that. So it was a very easy process to do. Spinning up Tor nodes is technical, but not, it's not for technical people, but for the average retail person, it is technical. But we also want to onboard traditional Tor operators as well, and it makes the job a lot easier that they do not need to install any sort of third-party software. They literally just edit a text file and then they can link it via MetaMask. So that would be very reassuring to traditional Tor operators. And you don't want anyone to be left behind. But of course, you want to incentivize the hardware as well. And that's why that's why so much work is being put into the tokenomics, because there's been a lot of due diligence has been done, a lot of consulting with very senior and highly sort of educated and experienced people to ensure this is a long-lasting and sustainable project.
Thank you, DMB. And SE, let us know if you're satisfied with this answer. I think you must be. At least for me, it makes completely sense. We have here Mr. Madness, and he has an interesting question as well. How will you fix the DDoS problem every relay is experiencing? The normal routers can't handle it, and they disconnect every 2-3 hours.
I can.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Well, Tor project have recently they're carrying out their own work to try and solve this problem. I believe they're looking to implement a proof of work solution, which will essentially be a way to prioritize actual traffic and mitigate DDoS and DOS attacks. So the Tor project and the Tor network has historically for years experienced issues with DOS attacks. If you attend the operator meetups, you'll see this is constantly discussed. So the Tor project themselves are actually working on a solution for this, which I believe they have implemented already. And we have seen, according to Tor project themselves, we have seen this start to become mitigated. But of course, this is a constant challenge when you're dealing with Tor or with any network in general. But Tor themselves are putting a mechanism in place to try and mitigate DOS attacks via a proof of work consensus mechanism. So we should be able to rely on that. Neurotic, maybe if you want to comment on anything on the ATOR side.
No, that's a very, very good point. And I think in general, maybe not quite the DDoS attack where it's sort of simulating useless traffic on Tor, but the kind of attacks where adversaries spin up relays to try and sort of de-anonymize users or attack the network. Other types of attacks, be it DDoS or other, having more nodes in the system is always a defense against that. And that actually applies also to DDoS to an extent, because as more users are using Tor, it becomes the proportion of sort of DOS attacks becomes diminished. So on having more relays essentially protects against a great number of attacks. And a second point I wanted to make, just on the second half of that user's question on their own relay having to sort of stop and reboot due to some of these attacks. One crucial aspect of the firmware, custom firmware that is being built into our ATOR relay hardware is something called a heartbeat program, which practically every 100 milliseconds is querying whether the OS is running, whether Tor software is running correctly, and pretty much instantaneously, if any of these things go down or don't submit the right response, the user will be notified. There'll be a path to reboot and rerun the relay. So I see that as one added value of the hardware, and also a mitigation against these kind of issues. If you're trying to run this on a circuit board or a laptop hidden away in a corner, you don't know if your Tor relay stops working or goes offline or something goes wrong. With the ATOR relay, we'll not only inform you of any issues as soon as they happen, it also has automatic firmware and OS paths to actually try and deal with these issues automatically. So especially as a non-technical user, hopefully a lot of these issues will just have an automatic reboot on the hardware, and you keep earning your rewards and keep running a relay. So on a personal relay side, that's also something we're trying to add value to.
That is a very detailed answer. Madness, I think you have no other choice than give the ATOR protocol a big like. To me, it makes completely sense. Thank you guys for explaining that. I see also a really interesting question from Stevan. He's saying, so at least it's a statement, bringing the whole internet private, don't you think you will be identified as a threat by governments and data-based businesses? Aren't you afraid of becoming a target for them?
That's an interesting question. And I think one important thing to flag is that the Tor network, as commonly as it is used around the world by various parties, was actually created by the US Naval Research Lab, and the Tor project is continually funded by the US government. So in a sense, it's very hard to say with these kind of answers. Ultimately, we're putting software out there. We're doing research, we're funding this project, the Tor network. But it remains to be seen, to be honest. But it's in a sense, I think a shakeup is required. Whether it'll almost certainly have to come from a mass group of people, and that's part of why I think ATOR is more than just a protocol, more than software. We're already seeing the beginnings of a movement, a change in attitude and a change in mindset about what we're going to stand for with privacy. And ultimately, once these movements get big enough, once it's ingrained in people's mindset, I believe the market and to an extent the government authorities will be forced to follow through with it. Ultimately these technology and software build in response to user demand. And I think if we set the right movement in place and set the right mindset in place, we hope this transition will be, for lack of a better word, a peaceful transition and better for everyone. But it's an interesting question and something to be mindful of always.
Yeah, just to add to that, I remember, when obviously retail VPNs are pretty normal now. I remember in VPNs for the average retail users first came out, people would almost raise eyebrows if you're using a VPN. It would almost seem like you're doing it to mask your IP for malicious purposes. But as adoption grows and time moves on and people get more and more educated, that narrative slowly changes. So I think, of course, the team and community members like myself are aware of regulatory risks, but we're doing everything by the book. We're not cutting any corners. We're only working and building on open source technologies that have existed and are used by government and military people for the last 20 years. But of course, I firmly believe that we're only one generation away from losing control of our privacy. And of course, there is powerful and governments and businesses that don't want us to protect our privacy. So there are those challenges. But as Neurotic says, part of the people, and we are building a community and a movement, and we're seeing that just by looking at the unique wallet holders, the activity on social media, the amount of feedback we're getting. And I can comment on this as I am a community member. And I don't really like discussing price, but I think the chart reflects community sentiment as well. So, for me, that's really hopeful, and I'm I think it's going to work out okay.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. With making the comparison with VPN. I mean, if you look now to the global market for VPN, it's estimated around $44 billion. I think this was just last year, so probably it's now even higher. And it was an industry. It started with, I mean, it was a $0 industry many years ago. And it's now completely normalized. It's actually kind of strange if you don't have a VPN, especially if you're in crypto. Not having VPN just doesn't make sense. It's really important. It's like for example, 2FA is really important, but having a VPN is important. And if someone can make use of the internet by fully staying anonymous, and it can fully safeguard his privacy, then why not going for that route? So I also believe that eventually it's a whole establishment, a whole movement that demands online privacy. Thank you. Yeah.
Jimmy, I couldn't agree more. And if we do compare it to traditional VPNs, when we look at when that first started, sort of gaining adoption, it used to be you would have to manually configure it yourself. I think like layer 2 tunneling protocol, it was only you had to have a level of expertise. But now you can there's lots of options where non-technical users can use it. And also back in the day, 5-10 years ago, when you used the VPN, that was again at the expense of the end user experience. It was slow, things like that. So I believe where we're at with Tor is where we were at with VPNs about 5 or 7 years ago. So again, as the relays grow, as we educate more, and as we don't need to use a web browser to access Tor, but we can tunnel all of our devices through the ATOR router, then we will see that mass adoption that we saw with the VPN market. And if I don't know what the VPN market cap is, but if ATOR can capture 10% of that, I mean, this is really going to go parabolic. So I think that is why we're all so excited. And history repeats itself. It's just we need to do it on a decentralized technology that uses the same IPsec secure standards. So that way everyone's secure and it's peer reviewed and peer audited.
It really sounds exciting. I mean, if the VPN market now, it's around 45 billion. So 10%, that's for something billion, 4.5 billion. I think the community would be really pleased with that. Stefan, SCZ, thank you so much for your question. You also have no other choice than hit the like button and pay ATOR Protocol a lot of respect for responding to your question in a very eloquent way. It also opened my mind. So thank you for that. I think we have like one question from ERC Bull. I missed his question. I don't want ERC Bull to I don't want to end this AMA without also diving into your question, ERC. His question is, how will rewards for DIY, not sure what it stands for, I forgot, relays compared to those for the official ATOR hardware relays on mainnet? DNB Wizard has hinted on Telegram that rewards will be prioritized for hardware relays.
There will be some mechanics like that in place, and that's something for the tokenomics paper in terms of exact numbers. So I'll leave that one for that.
Okay. I hope this was for you enough, ERC Bull. There are
also, ERC Bull, I see you helping us out with testing and running a relay, so I really appreciate it. Glad to have an ATOR node here on this AMA.
So you hear that you are much appreciated, and also appreciated for the question. I think we haven't really touched, well, a little bit, but maybe we could do a little bit more of a deep dive into this topic, the topic of tokenomics. Tokenomics is always a topic of interest in the crypto space. Could you guys maybe explain a little bit of the tokenomics of ATOR? So how is there anything you guys want to mention on the tokenomics?
Sure. So let me start with sort of the primary sort of foundational tokenomics that outlines this entire protocol. The rewards that form these incentives for people running Tor nodes is going to come out of an allocated 10% of supply that we currently have across some multi-sig wallets that will be moved to the facilitator vault on mainnet. And it's that 10% pool that forms these basis rewards for people running Tor nodes. Crucially, the payout to registered relays is, first of all, on a given day, the net outflow of tokens is a fixed number. So if the number of relays doubles or triples, it just means that the rewards are split between those relays. And secondly, the payout is a percentage of the remainder of the pool. So that means rewards follow an epoch sort of style reduction, and it means that the rewards are perpetual. So those are three very, very crucial parts of how this tokenomics works. And I think there are good reasons for that. We've seen attempts by other crypto projects to, set up similar sort of things. You buy hardware, you earn node rewards for these relays, and often they inflated the token supply beyond what is reasonable. For us, the token outflows on a given day is fixed, and that will hope to keep the effect on price minimal, as will having services that you can use these tokens for, and also keep the rewards a little bit more predictable and kind of longer lasting as well. So we hope to kind of hit that trinity of balance, and the exact numbers is to be shared in the tokenomics paper, but that's the foundation of how these rewards to these relays actually work.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. It's always, of course, very important to have to strive for the right balance. I'm very sure that you guys will find the perfect spot, the perfect balance to satisfy all stakeholders. Maybe the last question before we wrap up. We have here a question again from SE. I'm sure he's also very active in the community. Will the hardware relay be able to relay all kinds of traffic, for example, UDP torrent traffic?
Yeah, I can take this question. So yes, our plan is to UDP is essentially coming to Tor, but it'll come in a few months, and the whole idea is to have almost everything on Tor and go through an ATOR router.
That sounds like a satisfying answer. Thanks for that. Well, I want to thank you, Neurotic, Sander, and DMB. It's obvious you guys are subject matter experts. Online privacy, Tor network technology, future of internet is really your core business. I myself, I'm extremely also bullish, but that's me from a personal title on the ATOR Protocol, and I also share the same mission and vision. Thank you guys for enlightening us and for this discussion and for touching on all the the different questions, and also to our audience. Thank you so much for your wonderful questions and for joining us today. Remember, if you don't follow ATOR Protocol, you're missing out, really missing out. So find them on Twitter or check the description. You will find a few resources. I encourage everyone to check the docs, the documentations on docs.ator.io/roadmap. I mean, you cannot read this roadmap without getting excited about ATOR. So definitely read that if you haven't done already. Now, again, give a huge shout out to DMB Wizards, Sander and Neurotic. Thank you, gentlemen. and happy to have you guys in on another AMA, hopefully in the nearby future.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. And before you cut this off, actually, and before the audience drop off, I want to first thank you very, very much, Jimmy. It's clear you've done your research. It's very refreshing to come and explain these topics in new avenues. And I'm sure we'll be here in the future for another AMA. It was really very pleasant. The audience has been great. Questions have been great. It's been fantastic. And on that point, I'd like to, as you mentioned, the excitement we feel around this, I'd like to share a little bit more excitement with the very special community members who could be here today. And it's the following. We have built sort of a, I suppose, something of a side project to celebrate the relays that you're all setting up. We're over 1,000 Tor relays now, contributing close to 1% of the bandwidth in the Tor network and almost 8-9% of the active relays on Tor. It's huge feats. It's something I'd love for us all to celebrate together. And so just in this chat now, in fact, on Twitter in a couple of minutes, and I'm just dropping it into the official Telegram as well, soon to be integrated to the dashboard, but we couldn't wait to show this to you, so we put it on a standalone page. We're very, very happy to share the ATOR relay map, which shows visually the amazing effort we've had in testnet getting these relays up around the world. Hopefully we can grow the diversity and strength of these as the month comes, but I think it's actually, I was trying to drop in the chat. It's in the Telegram chat. It's relaymap.ator.io for anyone wanting to see. We've just got it live, soon to be on the dashboard, and it's just something special that we'd love to develop and share with you. So it's a great movement. Thank you again, Jimmy. That was our little alpha for the end of the AMA, and hopefully we'll all be on another chat room very, very soon.
Yeah, hopefully very, very soon. You guys heard it. Check it out, ATOR Relay, and yeah, have a fantastic day, guys, and hope to catch up soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.